The Bangladeshi prime minister has fled the country.
There's turmoil and uncertainty in Bangladesh after dozens of people were killed in clashes with police. The country's longest-serving prime minister resigned amid the violence, fleeing to nearby India. This unrest is the culmination of months of protests against the government there. NBC News international correspondent Kelly Kobiella has the latest.
Yeah, some pretty dramatic scenes in Bangladesh today, with thousands of protesters flooding the streets, celebrating and also storming the prime minister's official residence today. Some looting, taking...
Bangladeshi here. Everyone is happy about this. Scheherazade, and you're Bangladeshi. Nice. Yeah, so to catch people up on the lore, the gist of it basically is that they had a de facto caste system where only people who were related to people in positions of power were able to get in on a quota of government jobs. It basically ensured that like a certain set of positions were reserved for only people who were already related to the powerful. Like it kind of you know, it was effectively a caste system, but it wasn't like officially by blood, but I think in practice it kind of ended up being that anyway. And there were protests from students and from workers, and the Bangladeshi students, folks, they love protesting. They love, apparently this is like their favorite thing to do, which I know students generally tend to be pretty ornery, but apparently students in Bangladesh are just really into protesting. This one got a bit wacky though. You know, like security forces, military were brought in, people have been killed, and now apparently everything's on fire and the prime minister has fled. So
furniture, dishes, food, whatever they could carry after the prime minister, Sheikh Hasina, surprised the country by resigning today and fleeing to India. Her resignation earlier today came after weeks of violent protests, with more than 90 people killed on Sunday alone. Those protests began...
Jeez, holy shit! I thought the total number for the entire protests was a few dozen. 90 in one day? Apparently a lot of sectarian violence. Yeah, I'm hearing apparently there's a lot of like femicide going on. There are some like basically the equivalent of like alt-right Bangladeshi student groups that are targeting women specifically and them up. Communal violence must be resisted. Hindu people are being attacked. Temples are being broken. Are Hindus, are they the minority? What's the dominant religion in Bangladesh? I got they're right next to India, so you've got the Hindu, what's the Islam by far? Okay, yeah, okay. I thought, I guess in my head, I thought it was like 50-50 because India's right there, but Bangladesh folks, save minority Hindus. They are like brothers and sisters. Please don't attack temples or attack people. This will only show your country in poor view. Elect new government, show the quality. Over here in India, treat Muslims like you would anyone else. Jamaat and Awami League. The Awami League, these are like the alt-right student guys, right? The Awami League, they're like the, right? Bangladesh was part of Pakistan until it gained it. But no, I remember. I just didn't know what the portion of the split was, you know? What filter? That is a lot of people. That's like shoulder to shoulder as far as the eye can see down the city streets. That's at least 100, maybe even 150 people. Bangladesh has been in an economic position for a long time. It's like most of what I know about Bangladesh, I know in the context of the garment industry. The garment industry is almost impossible to fully automate. Unlike a lot of production stuff where you can literally just have like a factory and then an engineer who maintains the factory. Basically all clothing items that you wear are made by people. The fabrics are woven by machines, they're big looms, but the actual stitching on basically all clothing is done by a human. A human has touched the clothing that you wear. Why does it need to be manual? Because managing fabric, the soft push and pull of fabric, the fact that you have to like loop things around or sew hems over on themselves, the way cloth can bunch, it's just too complicated. Machines cannot do it. We have not yet invented machines that can make clothing. Maybe some very simple garments of clothing, but even something like a t-shirt, you need a human. No, Benjamin, we can't. We just haven't. Can AI do it? No, a machine cannot physically handle a clothing in the way you can Google it. You can look it up on YouTube. Even the cheap like $5 t-shirt blanks that you can get, that you can put your stupid designs on, like what I've done. Like at every level, humans are, and a lot of it's in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is like the epicenter of it. Not epicenter. I use that word too often. The center of it. Epicenter and center do not mean the same things, I tell myself angrily. Victory. Well, she certainly did leave. Okay, I need to learn more about this. And why are we going after the Hindus if the problem was the quota system? And the quota system was definitely not favoring Hindus. Unless it was? There's no way. Jesus. Okay, I'm going to turn that volume down. Bangladeshi J6, please keep in mind the Prime Minister was ordering the killing of protesters. This is not like a bunch of fascists have stormed their Congress because they hate democracy. This is, they were protesting a very unequal, effective, like, caste system, and then they were being killed for it, you know? Jesus. Before we catch up by watching the Al Jazeera videos on it, because I want to educate myself in this subject, let's take a look at the Wikipedia summary page, because honestly, you can get a lot of information. You know, it's good to dip your toe in. The 2024 Bangladesh quota reform movement is anti-government and pro-democracy protest in Bangladesh, spearheaded primarily by students of public and private universities, against the quota system for government job recruitment. A movement expanded against what many perceive as an authoritarian government when hundreds of protesters and civilians, many of whom were students, were killed. The majority of the fatalities were caused by gunshots fired by the police and other government forces using lethal and deadly weapons against unarmed protesters and non-protesting civilians, including children and pedestrians. So the Supreme Court of Bangladesh reinstated a 30% quota for descendants of freedom fighters. So this is their caste thing. Basically, 30% of the government jobs were reserved for relatives, descendants of the resistance movement that secured the independence of Bangladesh. In practice, what that means is a genetic caste system where, like, your ancestor determines, it's like nepotism but enshrined on a national level. And it means that a very specific caste of people get the best jobs in government, you know? So it's an odd caste system, but it's still a caste system. The Supreme Court reinstated the 30% quota. Students felt like they may have limited opportunity based on merit, so they started protesting. Also, the economy was bad. Also, everyone in Bangladesh works for $3 a day, probably not even that, making t-shirts that we wear. I mean, it's nepotism enshrined into law, which it in a way kind of is a caste system. It's a blurry line, I acknowledge, but from my perspective, what it's basically guaranteeing is that a certain genetic and heritage-based group of individuals gets a certain position of power in society, which is kind of, but I acknowledge that it's not a caste system in the way that, like, India's historical caste system was. It's just kind of, you know, this military declaring a nationwide shoot-on-sight curfew. Jesus! They killed the internet, the entire country. They blocked social media, Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp. 215 confirmed deaths and more than 20,000 others injured, 11,000 arrests. The unofficial death toll is between 300 and 500. UNICEF reported at least 32 children were killed during July's protests, with many more injured and detained. The Awami League government and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina have suggested the political opponents have co-opted the protest. Classic move. As of August 2024, the movement remains ongoing as it has expanded its demands to include accountability for the violence, a ban on the student wing of the government. Okay, this is the Hitler League. It's purple. We looked at it before. The Chhatra League, these are the, this is like the student wing of the government, and they're all like the kid Hitlerites, basically, you know? Look, their logo even looks Hitler-esque. Well, ISIS-esque, I suppose. The BSL has repeatedly been accused of using torture, extortion, violence, forced prostitution, and killings to instill fear. They're literally like student wing brown shirts who operate with the de facto permission of the government to keep others in line, which is pretty crazy. The Chhatra League are akin to a mafia, yeah. It's just crazy that they're a student league. I mean, I know that, like, in practice, they're probably not all students, but still. The movement calls for nationwide civil disobedience and for Hasina and her cabinet to step down and take responsibility for the deaths. Despite this, the government denies any protesters were killed by its security force. Okay, so that's the level we're on. Yeah, Scheherazadian, I saw a video the last time I covered this where there were women saying, like, there was a girl, a girl who was saying literally, like, we were at the protest, I got knocked down, or like my female friend got knocked down, and I thought, you know, okay, we're women, like someone help us up, right? And then the Chhatra League, rather than avoiding them, specifically targeted to beat them up and kick them while they were down. Like, it's an incel league. We're literally talking, like, imagine government-backed mafia brown shirts, and all of them are like black-pilled incels. You know, we're getting like Elliot Rodgers up in this shit with all of them. It's crazy. The takeover of Bangladesh's parliament. God damn. Look at how many people there are here. No music. Jesus, Scheherazadian. I'm glad you're okay, I presume. At least 25 people. Yeah. You call this Bangladeshi J6, but Donald Trump wishes he had this many people at his rally. Alright, no music. The Bangladeshi banger. The Bangladeshi. 171 million live in Bangladesh. Yeah, it's a very densely populated country. Okay, we got shit to learn.
We begin with fast-moving developments
and I go immediately to where I want to go to learn breaking news information on a third world country, a white man. Please explain.
Bangladesh. The army chief is due to address the nation this hour at a time of widespread unrest and deaths. On Sunday, at least 97 people were killed during violence between government supporters and those who want her out. Students are marching on the capital, Dhaka, to demand justice for 300 people killed since last month.
Jesus.
An indefinite curfew has been put in place, the internet has been cut off, and offices and factories closed. Students began protesting last month when a controversial job quota system that favoured children of war veterans was reinstated by the High Court. Now, that has since been scaled down by the country's top court. Well, for the latest, we're going to go now to Tanvir, who is live for us in Dhaka. And Tanvir, we're getting reports that there's actually a possibility that Hasina might resign. What are you hearing there?
Oh, wait, is this out of date?
Well, you can see behind me, maybe not the whole crowd. The entire city is out on the street. The speculation and the rumor has that she has left the country. We cannot independently verify anything like that. The army chief was supposed to give a televised speech at 2 p.m. local time, which is 8 GMT, but he postponed it till 3 p.m., which is 9 GMT. We'll know more details then, but nothing officially announced. But everybody in the streets...
I'm very sorry. I'm distracted by this stunner up here. Jesus Christ. Hello?
Every corner of the city, thousands of people are out. We are near to the Shabar Square, which is the epicenter of student protests. There's, I don't know the number of people. It's just, I've never seen anything like that in the capital city of protest. Tens of thousands of mostly students, public, you know, even family people with their children out celebrating. Practically, they've taken for sure that she has either left the country, resigned, or she may soon be leaving. And the government most likely is in a fallen or stepped down, and the army will decide what's the next step.
The UK denied political asylum to her, and tons of diaspora Bangladeshis are urging the government to not let her to other countries. Okay, genuine Scheherazade, and I'm deferring to you entirely on this because I don't want to divert into like a Wikipedia read on her right now. Just 1 to 10, how Hitlerite is she? Like, obviously she's pretty Hitler. Like, she's obviously bad. I'm just saying, like, from your perspective, like 1 to 10, you know? 10 being obviously the most Hitler, right? I just keep my nails trimmed. 0 being the... No, not 0 being the most. What kind of ridiculous system would that be?
Probably an interim government with a caretaker type government for the interim period.
She's not like right-wing Hitler, but she's a dictator. So I don't know, 8? 8! Holy shit! Note that Hitler himself was a mere 7. Okay. All right.
No more in details, maybe after 9 GMT local time.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
at this point, the main story is the celebration.
Yeah, Temford, sorry to interrupt. As you say, we're waiting for the army chief to speak shortly, any time now.
No,
Can
they
you
just
give us an
learned.
idea of how crucial the army is actually for Hasina to stay in power? If she loses them, does she lose the prime ministership?
You want to know something sad? The reason why all these student protesters are crowding around this camera is because the internet is still cut in Bangladesh. They're like, they know that they've been made invisible to the world to a large extent, so they're trying to get their faces out.
Historically very crucial because the army had played a role I'm sorry.
They say she brought a lot of people out of poverty too. Yeah, I'm going to translate that in my magnificent brain that is familiar with how we tend to talk about countries in the developing world. What that means is that she's been very amenable to Western business investment. That means that she's offered a lot of companies the opportunity to set up factories in Bangladesh so people can work for sweatshop wages, you know? Correct? Yeah. Yep. Job creator. You know, the jobs are basically slave jobs, and you know, we pay like $3 for a t-shirt. I'm going to do it, folks. I'm going to integrate my current autistic special interest into the subject of this, okay? I think we should buy more expensive clothing that looks a lot better, less often. The current fast fashion trend is one thing, but the long-term trend of more and more clothing manufacturing being outsourced to places where it can cost like $2 to make, sold to us for $9 so we can wear it 3 times, then toss it and it never looks good. You know? It's not good. It's been happening recently, too. A lot of clothing manufacturing used to be done in America as recently as the 2000, like the 2000s. More and more of it has been outsourced. Where does Uniqlo fit into this? Uniqlo, like basically every clothing brand, has most of their clothes manufacturing done in places like Bangladesh. There are some brands that do a lot of manufacturing in America. Buck Mason, for example, does a decent amount of their manufacturing in America. It's a very American brand. There are also non-American manufacturing places that are still good. If clothing is made in Spain, Portugal, Italy, you know, South Korea, Japan, it's probably pretty good, you know, not just in terms of quality, but I imagine the people who made the clothing are getting paid better wages than the people in Bangladesh. But that's not guaranteed. Folks, Dye Workwear did a write-up on this. Did you know there are sweatshops in America, in Los Angeles, in buildings that I have been over because the metro line that I would take to my friend's place back in high school would go right over them. There are sweatshop workers making $5 was it an hour or a day? It violates the law either way. They're making not enough money, and they're making clothes. And I really do think that if we took the time to think a little bit more about developing our personal style and buying clothing that is more expensive but made more ethically, not only will we have nicer outfits and outfits we take care of for longer and will be hotter and will be stunning and we'll have more children, thus fixing the birth rate decline because we'll be from how hot we all are. But we won't be propping up a system of effectively slave labor in Bangladesh and other countries. Vietnam is another big center for that, like clothing, the clothing manufacturing. Though I think Vietnam, generally speaking, has significantly better worker conditions than Bangladesh. It's still kind of a low bar. Doesn't have to be expensive. Well, I mean, if we pay workers a fair wage to make high quality clothes that we don't just toss away after a few days, they will be more expensive, but you will look better. God did not intend us to have $5 t-shirts.
People are excited here. Guys, please, I know you're excited. Historically, army played a role in the politics in Bangladesh. People generally love the army. They think they're a neutral body in times of crisis. They can handle situation in what we saw in the past several weeks, the violence and everything. They have confidence on the army that can manage the situation, and the army doesn't want to be the enemy of the people. And that's why people have confidence the army will control the situation in a neutral and proper manner. Lives will be saved, properties will be saved. So this is what they're saying. In just about an hour ago, the students were hanging out flowers to the troops, the military troops. About 4 hours back, the police were still cracking down on students in the university campuses.
So, wait, Scheherazadian, as our reporter on the ground, can you confirm or deny the claim that the military is handling this better than the local security forces and police? Jesus, Annie.
Firing rounds, people were injured, some probably fatally, but that all thing is over, and people are relieved that this brutal crackdown for past several weeks is finally over, and that they can look forward to a new future.
Yeah, Tanvir, you're mentioning that just the change in the last few hours from the army and police.
I repeated a message trying to explain the garment industry has done a lot for Bangladesh, especially women's rights, because it's given everyone a place in the job. I'm not at all against garment manufacturing in Bangladesh. I just think that the way it's usually, so to be clear, I like it when countries invest in other countries because interdependence is a good way to facilitate mutual growth, but it has to be interdependence on equal footing. If we're in a position where America has so much more money and power than Bangladesh, which we do, and our corporations, like Bangladesh, a lot of people over there live or die based on our investment, That means they're desperate. That means they're easy to exploit. If we listen, okay, I want every Bangladeshi over there enjoying a job of their preference, government quotas be damned. And if you're working in some kind of textile mill, I want you making 15 USD an hour, making sick ass cropped t-shirts with a double banded rib collar because I don't want it stretching when I put it on and off my big head, and I don't take my glasses off before I put my t-shirts on and off because I'm just too lazy to. So basically what I'm saying is make better t-shirts for me.
Police shooting at protesters, and now we see these protesters, even though there is still a curfew in place there on the streets, that they've come out in force and, as you say, are celebrating before we've had any formal announcement from either the army or the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of surprised me.
Oh, hold on. Oh, that's nice. The military has not repressed the protests? Scheherazadian, I still need a confirmation from you on this particular subject. I guess it's just a reminder, like the world over, police are all Hitler, and the military sometimes is, sometimes isn't, I'm not actually on the ground, but that seems to be the case. I didn't imagine you actually were on the ground. I mean, the internet's cut in Bangladesh, right? Though there's always ways around that. I didn't, if you were on the ground and you had found a way to circumvent the internet blockage, you probably wouldn't be using your time to watch me. I'm not that cool.
People heard rumors, people heard all kind of stories, and the fact that the army chief was, which very rarely happens, going to address the nation, they knew some sort of changes are.
If this is a classroom, are you doing the glad to have you in class, Abdul? I hope you can tell us about Iran thing. Hold up now. Come on. All right. The information was offered. I'm just, we have an international community. We have an international community, and I'm celebrating the diversity in the audience. I got recognized by someone the other day. I was out in the town. Someone saw me. Someone saw me and they were like, hey, I enjoy your content. And folks, I'm not saying anything. I'm not confirming or denying. I'm just saying this individual probably has to wear sunscreen a little bit less than I do. So I'm just like, this is a broad community, you know, and I'm celebrating its diversity. DEI VGG. Paid actor.
The foreground, and because a lot of students started coming to the Shabak Square,
they were very nice.
The army didn't interfere. Rather, they allowed them to
had a nice
gather
bag.
and were embracing the students when they handed out the flowers. That gave the signal that something must have happened because they're not doing anything, but the police left the area. You don't see hardly any police in the city. You know, it's mostly army or nothing at all. It's mostly taken over by the general population, the students, and everyone is out in the street. But it is still based on speculation. We cannot independently confirm anything that happened behind the scene, what's going on behind in the government sector, but it is likely something major has happened. Otherwise, you wouldn't see what's going on. And we won't know till the army address and there's some official announcement.
Yes, thanks so much, Tanvir.
When is the army address? Scheherazadian, has the army address happened yet? This is actually a huge deal, man. Nothing ever happens, guys, when they look outside the West.
And fled the country. Protest as Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned on Monday and fled the country. Protesters stormed her residence in the capital of Dhaka and began looting one of the most protected buildings in the country. Elsewhere in the city, they chiselled away at the face of a statue of her father, state founder Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, with an axe.
That's who that... Wait, is that the same?
India's ANI News...
That is a huge statue, man. Careful up there. Jesus.
Mujibur Rahman with an axe. India's ANI news agency said 76-year-old Hasina landed at a military airfield near Delhi. Reuters could not immediately verify this, but commercial tracking services showed a Bangladesh Air Force plane.
Okay, I'm curious about this. What is the relationship between India and Bangladesh? India right now is really Islamophobic, and I guess there's a Hindu-phobic tendency within Bangladesh, though I don't know the extent to which it exists, clearly enough that it's an issue. She's Modi-funded. Is she not Muslim? Is she just like a plant there because she doesn't... Her and her party are very friendly with India? Awami League is incredibly cucked to India. Fascists with fascists, I suppose. Nominally a very secular government, but it's very much an Islamic nation. So, Sheikh, I guess with a name like Sheikh, probably not. I'm just not familiar with the dress. This doesn't look like Muslim clothing to me, but obviously that's a stupid thing to say because there's like 50 trillion Muslims. It'd be like me saying this doesn't look like Christian clothing to me when I'm looking at Armenia, and it's like, you know? I think people in this, I think this part of South Asia, people just wear like cool patterns on their robes, you know? They just like that. I respect it. Anything here? So she's probably going to stay in India then, huh? At least for a while. Oh, she lived in exile in India even before. When living in exile in India, she was elected president of the Awami League, which was described as a left-of-center party. That's nice. House arrest, house arrest. She accepted political asylum from Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Not that Gandhi, folks. That was Mahatma. Barred from entering Bangladesh by the military government. Awami League. Huh, okay. It's been widely considered that under her premiership, Bangladesh experienced democratic backsliding. Human Rights Watch documented widespread forced disappearances and extrajudicial killings under her government. Many politicians and journalists were systematically and judicially punished for challenging her views. Jesus.
Leaving the country and flying west before it disappeared. The news of her exit was delivered by Army Chief General Waka Uzzaman in a televised address. He said after a discussion with political leaders, an interim government would be formed.
Please keep faith and trust in the army.
That, I gotta say, not a phrase that generally inspires a great degree of confidence in me.
I take the responsibility and I promise to protect the lives and property of the people. Don't lose faith in the army. God willing, we will fulfill your demands and bring peace and harmony back to the country. I request to you all to support the army and stop the violence, murders, hooliganism, and the protest.
Bangladesh has been engulfed by violence after students...
I guess, like, one of my big worries here would be, what if we get kind of like a military junta that takes the anger of the people and redirects it against the Hindus? They could be like, you know, the prime minister fled to India, Hindu nationalism. She's in league with them. This whole problem was such and such. Now, again, I'm simplifying it, but I can see how the army could consolidate power and redirect the antagonism of the people in a way like that. Hopefully not. I got sent this nice picture. Muslim clerics voluntarily guarding a Hindu temple in Kumila. I think that's nice. I think they should keep at that.
Protests began against quotas, which reserve some public sector jobs for veterans of Bangladesh's 1971 independence war, in some of the worst violence since the birth of the South Asian nation more than 5 decades ago. About 250 people have been killed and thousands injured. It escalated into a campaign to oust Hasina, who won a 4th straight term in January in an election boycotted by the opposition. In defiance of a nationwide curfew, there was jubilation as thousands of people marched in the streets of the capital.
We will never forget the student martyrs who have freed us today. They will always be in our hearts.
I really hope they keep the sauce up, man. Like really, really, really badly. Why are we listening today to all British podcasts? Because Al Jazeera, it's very often the case that if you're listening to anything international, you're getting it from a white guy with a British accent or a brown person that the white guy with the British accent is pointing you to, you know? It's how it is. Blame Al Jazeera. They're in charge of a lot of this. Yeah, I hope we don't get an Egypt situation. That'd be really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. I think at the moment, that's all the information we have. We don't know when the military address is going to be, so we don't know. I guess I'm very curious to see what the tone of the military announcement is, you know? Like how dictatorial it's going to be, how militant, so on and so forth. But we don't know when it's going to come out. In the meantime, it seems like this is all good. The military address was them announcing the prime minister fleeing. But isn't there going to be a subsequent one? He said, keep faith in the military, and he was going to do like additional follow-ups on, because they're doing an interim government. So, I mean, the address, I want to see how things play out. I don't know how they're going to play out. I don't think anyone does, I guess. Only the Bangladeshi military. Well, for right now, we support the Bangladeshi student protesters.